In a castle there lived two princesses, Princess Clementine and her younger sister, Princess Olive. While they never quite fought, they certainly didn't get along well. They mostly kept to themselves. When they were very young, they lost their mother to an ill. Now they live in the castle with their father, the king. Clementine spends most of her time planning her role as queen, which she realizes is ultimately her destiny, and she intends to do a good job. Whereas, Olive is fine letting her sister rule the kingdom one day and spends her time sneaking out of the castle looking for adventure, typically to no avail. It is the night of Olive's birthday, and nobody has heard from her all day. Clementine enters Olive's chamber with a cake. She does love her sister, after all, but Olive is nowhere to be found. Clementine checks the castle and asks the guards if they have seen her. Not too worried about her sister's absence, Clementine, frustrated that her sister would go off on her birthday without telling anyone, eats the cake by herself. She put no more thought to it, as the king currently is away in another kingdom, and she has to tend to the kingdom while he is gone. The night passes, and as the next day comes, Olive still has yet to return to the castle. Clementine feels a little concerned, but pays it no mind. This isn't out of the ordinary for Olive. Clementine puts all of her energy into a problem with the kingdom she is currently facing alone. Rumors of a rebel group are spreading throughout the castle, and an uprising is imminent. After about a week of work, Clementine asks one of the guards to find Olive for her. She would like to play chess with her sister. The guard informs her that Olive is still out. This burdens Clementine. She had all but forgotten about her sister tending to her duties for the kingdom. A thought crosses her mind to send a search party, however, doing so would alert the rebels to an immediate weakness in the castle guard and prompt an attack. Then another thought comes to mind. The princesses have never been shown to the public as princesses. This was a protective measure the king took after the loss of the queen. So, Clementine could safely leave the castle and, while no royals would be left in the castle, the public, and more importantly, the rebels, wouldn't be any wiser to the fact. They aren't even aware that the king is away. Reluctantly, and with great trepidation, Clementine dons a cape and leaves the castle, determined to find her sister. Clementine's first stop is the town square. Even late at night the square is bustling with nobles. Stepping into the bar she had been looking for, known to have an affinity for adventurers, she talks to the barkeep. He asks if she has been in the bar before, as she looks very familiar. She explains that he may have seen her sister. They look very alike. Clementine asks the man when he last saw her sister. It must have been about a week since, he says. Clementine thanks the kindly tavern keeper and makes her way out of the establishment. Even though it's late, Clementine treks toward the outskirts of the kingdom before finding an inn to rest for the night. She is determined to find Olive as swiftly as possible. Clementine wakes up before sunrise and makes her way downstairs. To her surprise, the innkeeper is awake as well. "Where are you off to, young lady?" The elderly woman beckons for her to take a seat. "I'm sorry, innkeep, I must be going." "Surely not before you have at least had something to eat." Clementine puts up protest, but gives in. A hot meal does sound tempting. "What are you in such a hurry for, anyhow?" "I'm afraid that is personal business, madam." The old lady can see through Clementine's thin facade to tell she is quite in pain. "Come now, you need not worry." Clementine eventually relents and tells the innkeeper about her sister, leaving out any word of their royalty. The innkeeper offers a comforting word along with wishing Clementine luck. Clementine prepares to pay for the room and the meal, but the elderly woman will not take her money. Thanks are given and the sun is rising as Clementine leaves the inn and goes into the woods on the edge of her kingdom. As she is walking along a trail, she realizes she was foolish for not bringing a horse, regardless that she never learned how to ride. Clementine walks for hours, and this being the first time she has been outside of the kingdom she is quite worried. As the sun begins to set while she makes camp she begins to lose hope, having yet to find anything to help her on the trail of her sister. Exhausted and nauseous from worry, Clementine lays on her bedroll and attempts to sleep. She dreams of a great stag in a field of red flowers that stretches as far as the eye can see. Again, she wakes before the sun and starts on her way down the trail. At around noon she decides to step off the trail and start a fire to cook some of the meat she brought along. Crouching to sit on a fallen log to eat, she notices a group of footprints. This is quite a lucky find, considering she has no outdoor experience of any kind. She packs up her food and follows the footprints, leading to a cave. The entrance to the cave is quite small. But after about 2 hours of pacing and getting her nerves up, she crawls through the hole and enters. 10 feet in, the cave opens from the small tunnel into a larger passageway. Clementine is able to stand. The immediate room is dark, and Clementine starts to lose her previously acquired nerve, but she pushes forward. For some reason, she has a feeling this is where her sister is. As she makes her way through the cave she sees a light around a corner, her initial thought being that it's an exit. When she turns the corner she sees a corridor lit with luminescent rocks of all colors. Clementine walks down the corridor, marveling at the beauty of the rocks. The cave seems to go on for miles. Clementine gets sleepy. Unaware of the current time, she sets up camp. When she wakes she hears a noise coming from deeper in the cave. To her astonishment it sounds like Olive. Clementine doesn't bother to pack up her tent and breaks into a sprint down the corridor. She feels a sharp thud on the back of her head and she blacks out. When Clementine comes to, she is in chains next to a wall. Her room is devoid of crystals, making it somewhat dark, the only light coming from the entrance to the room. Clementine is only awake for a minute, groggy and confused, then she passes out again. Clementine again dreams of the stag. The princess awakens to the sound of a voice, a loud, crying voice. It's Olive waking up her sister. She apologizes for leaving and for getting Clementine into the situation she is currently in. Olive is also in chains. Clementine is dazed and doesn't take in any of what Olive is saying. After a moment she realizes that she has found her sister and begins to cry as well. After their merry reunion, Clementine notices 4 more people in the room. Olive explains that they are her friends. She joined them on an adventure. This makes Clementine furious. Olive carelessly left her family without telling any of them, and joined a group of money-grubbing adventurers only to get herself kidnapped. Who is keeping us here? Clementine has a stint of clarity to focus on more important things than berating her little sister's bad decisions. Brutus, a big, burly man sitting 2 people away from Olive, explains to Clementine that they were captured by a tribe of gnolls. The group of adventurers had been contracted to retrieve the gems from this cave when they were ambushed by the creatures. Gnolls had been terrorizing the kingdom for generations. What are they going to do to us? Clementine asks pointedly. Probably eat us, Mirabelle says, a dark, sad-looking girl. Nobody is going to get eaten, Mirabelle. We need to think of a plan. This came from Samuel. A tall, blond fellow. He has the features of a leader. Over the next couple of hours the group of adventurers tries to come up with a plan. They come up short to say the least. During that time, Clementine had been told to keep watch near the entrance for guards who could overhear the party scheming. Clementine rejoins the group to see what the plan is, only to be disappointed when the group of apparent novices has nothing to show for their time. Clementine scolds the group and took on the responsibility of coming up with a plan. The group sneers at her. In what world would this prissy girl be able to get these adventurers out of a bind like this? Little did they know, Clementine had been tutored by her father in the art of war and combat since she was young, to adeptly lead her army to victory in the future. So within the hour she crafts a perfect escape plan, far too complex and ingenious to recreate here. In the end, Clementine had gotten the group of adventurers, herself, and Olive out of the cave safely. The adventurers were astonished by her tact and begged her to join their team. Of course she denied them. Clementine took Olive back to the castle, they had some talking to do. Olive realized what she did was wrong. And Clementine felt sympathy for her. Being born into royalty with the heart of an adventurer is no easy feat. They came to an agreement. Clementine would teach Olive everything she knew about planning and strategy, and Olive would study endlessly on the various schools of adventuring. When Clementine was to become queen, Olive would be free to leave the castle and join a guild, or start one of her own if she so desired, and when their father arrived home, not a word of this mess would be spoken to him.